Here we are. Welcome to the Product and AI SIG, part of Agile Austin. This is our March edition, and we have Matt with us today talking about adopting Gen AI tools for product management and leadership. Uh, what he wished he'd, what he learned, and what he wished he'd known before starting. At Agile Austin, a lot of times we like talking about how we failed, but that doesn't usually translate well to a good meetup presentation. But we always like talking about that because you learn from failures a lot more than your successes. Here's a bit of the mission of Agile Austin overall. And if you have any questions online today, we've got Max Sakissi and Ben Rogers, who are both board members of Agile Austin. And to that point, you can see their very lovely pictures right here. You can sponsor if you want to. We love having sponsors at Agile Austin. Helps pay for things like this. All of our content's free, with the possible exception of the largely popular Keep Austin Agile conference that's coming up that Max just talked about. We have six SIGs right now, special interest groups or meetups. They meet just about every month. There's about 7,300 Agile Austin members on the meetup, and there's lots of opportunities to learn and contribute. We got some sponsors. The platinum sponsor, Agile Velocity. Thank you also to ResumeX, our new sponsor for this year at Gold, and longtime also silver sponsor, Ad Meloria Coaching. Um, Part of the opportunity that you have as an Agile Austin member, which is about 35 bucks a year, or it might be exactly 35 bucks a year, is that you can become you get a scholarship or you can apply to get a scholarship. Reach out to Max if you're curious about that. There's also a 15% discount for Agile Velocity public workshops. Um, Everything we do here is volunteered. Volunteered, is that a word? Verb. Volunteers here are what make Agile Austin go. Some of us have been doing it for 15 or so years, including, actually, I guess it's actually more like 18 years, including Vishal Sheth, who's my co-lead, and myself, who've been part of Agile Austin since 2007. Amazing. Here's a little bit about our SIG that you're at today. It's the focus of sort of the intersection of product and AI. We put product first because that's the primary community that we're serving here. And then AI is a great enabler of lots of things, including product. What's happening? So next month we have Candace Hookson talking about AI-driven product owners, the evolution of collaboration and decision making in agile teams. So kind of similar. We've had a couple talking about how product managers, Zoo, who's with us today, was talking last month about how to help product managers provide great feedback and build their product management leaders and individual contributors. Now we have Candace talking about other ways that AI can be used in product management. Tristan may not join in May. It might be too early of an idea for the Thousand Brains project, or at least applicable to products. So we're still working on that, but I'm fascinated by that area. And then June, we've got Don McGreal and Ravi Verma talking about more product management with Gen AI. So there's a bit of a theme here. And today, speaking of themes, we've got Matt here. Super excited. I worked with Matt throughout the acquisition of my former company, Skykick, by ConnectWise with a private equity firm. Really had some fun doing some deep dive code analysis for mergers and acquisitions and all that kind of stuff. And we found we had a lot in common. And I said, "Hey, how'd you like to come talk to our community today?" And he wants to talk about, or he's going to talk about all the things that he learned and wish he had known the first time. And Matt is the CEO and founder, I do believe, of Sema Software. And he's out of Baltimore and here today to share with us. And that said, I'm going to hand it over to Matt and stop sharing.
Amazing. Thank you, Matt, for that introduction. Can you guys hear me okay? Is my volume good?
Sound great.
Thank you,
Yes.
Ben. All right, we're going to try this. Sharing screen. Good so far. Can you see my chat window as well, or just the presentation?
Just the presentation with driving on the left and Agile Austin picture and that beautiful Ladybird Lake that I love running around on the right.
I know, it's totally amazing. Well, I am so excited to talk about this. I'm really honored to Matt to invite me. Um, my big, hairy, aspirational goal is that everybody takes, yeah, 15 skyscrapers ago, exactly. Everybody takes at least one thing away from this. I'm really aiming for that. I encourage you. I can see the chat. I'm going to do my best to keep up with it. If you have any questions or comments, please jump in. I'll do my best to follow along and capture them and incorporate them in real time. So anything you see you have questions about, please do jump in. So let's get started. Matt, so me, I was a management consultant. I worked at private equity-backed software companies. I love Patrizzi's. I used to live in Austin. I lost a bet, wore a chicken hat on the airplane. It was a good time. I got left alone as a result. Um, our business does code scans. Our first business does code scans in diligences and other moments, kind of like a Carfax or a report card or credit score, fill in the blank. We've started helping our clients use and understand AI responsibly, and then through a software product, and then really invested in our own company in trying to become AI first where it made sense, not for its own sake, but really try to make that investment. And I realized I learned a lot from it, could have done a better job in many ways, personally and as a leader. And so, really delighted to talk about this. Um, so, last July, I had a hard look at where we were. So this is GenAI outside of software development, but everywhere else, I really wasn't using it. I was reading about it all the time. A few people were dipping their toe in, but it was kind of this nebulous area that we didn't, um, that we were not taking seriously, if I'm honest with myself about it. Um, I then volunteered myself to work on it, to go deep by myself for about 2 months, because I wanted to really understand it myself before I started teaching or encouraging others to use it. We focused in general on executive/management tasks to make those easier and better via AI, and then went deep in the product function at the risk of continuing the theme of all of these talks over the next few months. But product really seemed like a really applicable area. When I reflected on it about 6 months later, welcome, Pragadesh. 6 months later, I think we did about 18 different tasks, depending on how you count it. 10 of them I think mattered the most, and so we're going to focus on a few of them in particular, but 10 we did pretty seriously. There were 15 more in hindsight we could have done, and I wanted you to see the list of all of them so you guys can see for yourselves. Now I'd say we're a 7 out of 10 after 7 months. Now that we know what it can do, there's a lot of upside ahead. Um, I like to say that I like to think of ourselves as AI first outside of coding. We also use it in software development. And my standard for that is there's almost nothing that any of us does that would normally have taken more than 10 minutes, and sometimes it's less than 10 minutes, that we wouldn't start with AI helping. Um,
Hmm.
Not because it's sexy, but because it seems to help. And as some qualitative metrics, I personally have had more fun changing my workflows to take advantage of GenAI. So there's more positive upside. I feel more creative. It's just like a drug ad. I feel more creative. I get the chance to work on the things I like the most. And there's the absence of pain. Some of the stuff I really don't like. Incredible side note, if you haven't used really a turbocharged way to take meeting notes, have them auto summarized and task created, it's like the number one thing to do. And by the way, side note, I have lots of samples, happy to send them out to anybody who wants to use anything that we've built and just go ahead and use it or try it out. I'm happy to share it all, of course. So 10 things we did, 10 things of the 18 that I think were the most important. I'm going to spend most of our time on just demonstrating teaching how to prompt, including writing prompts to create prompts, which is, I think, the single biggest aha. Second, keeping in mind that, and really teaching our colleagues that GenAI is a I like acronyms, Kentucky Fried Chicken, kooky, forgetful colleague. So it used to be an intern level quality. You really had to check its work for even basic accuracy. GenAI tools are past that point now. They have colleague level accuracy, um, but they are kooky. They come to some very unusual things you might not normally like. You wouldn't think, and they are forgetful. And it's the forgetfulness that is the most weird. Those of us who are, of course, used to coding, you give it a set of instructions, it will follow it every time, and it doesn't. You have to repeat yourself. You have to keep in your short-term memory, like I have a cheat sheet of things I have to remind the AI to not forget about, which is just not intuitive for fill in the blank, any other tool that I'm using. But I need to do that in order to make sure it's delivering. So thinking about it as a forgetful colleague, I think really helps. As a leader, I mean, some of this is just standard change management. So happy to talk about it, but I really want to talk about prompting. Talking about it incessantly, because as Cotter, leading change, said, if you're trying to get something across, you have to be sick of saying it because you've already thought about it. And so you need to say it long past the point when it makes sense to you because you've already had the chance to reflect on it. To get AI really adopted, you need both a leadership champion who's role modeling it, and then a technical champion. Um, I kind of liken it. Sorry if this is a gross simplification, but sort of like someone who likes pivot tables. So you don't have to be a coder, but you like geeking out on data. That kind of person, preferably someone who's also pretty creative. Someone who's creative who likes pivot tables is likely your best go-to person at whatever level she's in the organization to like to be the go-to person as you're building the knowledge, building the muscle memory on how to use Gen AI in all these different cases. Um, after about number 6, after about 2 months, I myself like literally wouldn't do anything before I forced myself, tie myself to the mast to use Gen AI first. Then I've started directing new folks to do it after we were sure it made sense. The identity conversation. I know you all know what that means, but are we really professionals if these tools can do work that's very similar to our work? Um, yeah, exactly, John, exactly. Um, the the identity conversation. I think there's a couple ways of thinking about it. The first, the most obvious question is, in the history of time, we've gotten more and more tools at our disposal. Like when I explained to coders, are you still a coder if you use GenAI coding tools? Well, you're not using punch cards. We're using programming languages and advanced programming languages and IDEs and uh, open source, right? All these other things. It is step functions of abstraction. My goodness, is the human in the loop still incredibly important? That's not that's not puffery. I mean, it really is true. Um, my favorite scholar on this, Ethan Malik. I'll show you the link to his LinkedIn. I log in. I read him like a mini newsletter every day. He has said that Gen AI has made intelligence cheap, but judgment remains expensive. Judgment and wisdom. And what does that mean? It means you can ask a Gen AI to come up with 100 ideas and produce the 5 best. And then you have to do the hard work of asking the right question, of evaluating those 5, of whether you want different ones. Most cases, you would never want to like go through the work of building 100 of something and picking the 5 best. That's too much work. But now we have this army of virtual of virtual staff to do that thinking work. It still requires and it must have the human element of judgment associated. Lots of different ways to tackle the identity conversation, but you shouldn't be afraid. Don't shy away from it because everybody's talking about it. Number 8, I absolutely would have somebody teach one-on-one. This is a skill that feels a little uncomfortable at first, and giving everyone a half-hour private session so they get to ask their questions that they might be embarrassed to ask otherwise. The more senior they are, the more nervous they are about it. And I definitely would train the C-suite one at a time because they're going to ask, they're going to have questions, and you want them role modeling on behalf of everyone else. Again, number 9, basic change management. You get someone to do something by showing them how they get more of something they like or taking away something they hate. Meeting notes just comes up over and over of how you can so elegantly avoid having to take notes in the first place, and then have it automatically translated into to-dos that you can copy and paste and get messages sent out. It takes away a pain point that many people experience. Then on the other side, I know for me, so that was a negative point. For me, the unbelievable delight of brainstorming possible new products, writing up user stories, refining them, and then prototyping them first through static images and then through clickable prototypes is just the most delightful thing. And it is so fun. I like steal away time in the mornings on weekends to play with it because it's just delightful. Finding something that drives, that is that compelling to members of your team, either that compelling good or taking away pain, is definitely the way to do it. Um, Yes, meeting notes. I'm going to jump. This is how I work, so I'm going to respond. So Alyssa said, the meeting notes I found interesting. Writing is also a form of encoding and processing information, but I totally get the appeal and the use case of this. I promise I hear you. I felt a similar way. If you're willing, I know we've just met, try a full transcript. Try putting it into a structured task prompt that produces the kind of meeting notes that you want. So not just a transcript. I'll show you what I mean by that in a second. And then edit it yourself. Do that hand editing because it's never going to be perfect. I have found that's a way to stay engaged in the material while um, coming through some of the chafe. And then you can combine them and still take that creative step. But having the machine do the first draft, I was very adamant about writing my own notes, and then have turned away from it because of this. Okay, and then finally, by this point, we're now mandating it. In job descriptions, in job interviews, you are going to be AI first. We have found so many use cases for it. It doesn't mean literally everything. It doesn't mean that we're not important, but you're going to start with it. It's expected from the beginning, so there are no surprises. We do this for coders too. But we have, that's a really long way away from like reading articles about it in July to it now being in our job descriptions and asked in interviews and eye-to-eye contact eye-to-eye contact about no, we're gonna use this first. We're gonna use this first. I guess probably an obvious one that I didn't add to this is make sure people have access to tools. Make sure they're only using enterprise grade tools, so you're not giving away your IP. So they're not retrained. They cannot retrain. You can't use a tool that's being retrained, and make sure people understand the risk of that. If they're using a free tool, your IP is walking out the door. Let me pause. That's the overview of the things I wish we did. I'm going to spend some time on teaching how to prompt because I think that was really the single biggest aha for me and some of my colleagues. I'll give 30 seconds so if anyone has comments they want to add on the chat. Comments or questions? Zoo, I see you raised your hand.
Yeah, I was very much like over here nodding when you were talking about the identity. Um, Something that I don't know, it's a question, but I'm curious what your thoughts are. I've been thinking a lot about how, some of us that are now transitioning to AI for some of our workflows, we know how to do that job. We know how to do meeting notes, right? Like real time, having to pay attention to the meeting, but also write down things. This is just a speed shortcuts. We know how to synthesize user feedback all by hand in Excel and like actually come up with across many interviews with a thing, but we also know you could just feed transcripts to AI and it will like produce very similar thing, assuming that you're structuring it and prompting it right. But I've been thinking a lot about how someone who, let's just say a PM coming out of school, has never done interviews and synthesis by hand, feeds it in there and that doesn't actually understand how those patterns are found. How are they going to know kind of that bit you said, like it's still important that you use that value judgment as a human. Like, how are they going to even know and evaluate that output when they have never done it on their own? So I don't know if you've thought about that bit, like when we
Yeah,
lose the
it's
ability to
a huge challenge.
evaluate.
Huge challenge. And in fact, we're building a knowledge base right now of we explain the reports that we wrote in our first product, and we have a junior person straight out of college who's building that knowledge base. And I said to her, you cannot use AI until you watch 5 of them, and you really watch the recordings and you ask me questions and you engage in it, because you have to get the gist. You have to get the gist of it. Now, 2 years ago, she wouldn't have just been able to watch 5. She would have had to watch 50, right? So there's a compression of that, of that apprenticeship time. And so folks who are managing junior folks have to be super intentional about it, because you can just jump to what seems to be right. That's the super scary thing about this. For folks with experience, it's an incredible enabler, but you also know what to ask, you know when to call bullshit. I hope I can curse on this call. And literally, junior folks don't know it at all. So I would be very scaffolded. I would be very explicit with junior folks about when you want them to use it and when not, because they have to get the. It's not, the old world is gone. They're not going to just have a straight apprenticeship and then start using AI. They're going to begin to use it, but take very seriously. I completely agree with the premise, Sue, of not over relying on it too soon. Thank you.
One thing that I want to add there, Matt, is kind of even on my own journey is like there's certain tools I think that are better and worse. I don't own any stock or any, I don't know, maybe I do, like in some mutual fund, but like I really dig Perplexity because, when you go like I love it for research, right? And this is maybe we're talking about like when you seek that knowledge and you seek to understand that you still have this curious mind, the skeptical mind, and it's giving you an answer and then wanting to understand each part of that and not just taking it as like, fact or literal truth because of the problems with explainability or the kooky forgetful. Like there's some kookiness there. And if you assume they're not kooky, it's like, can you prove it to yourself that what you're reading is relatively true or there's lots of truth to it? And so I do like Perplexity because it actually gives you the referrals and you can like get a little bit deeper. And then to your point, one of the most important things is like, I'll use an Amazon quote. There's no compression for experience. There's no compression technology for experience. So finding those people and having those people with wisdom and experience who've done this, and that usually gets into their judgment, their discernment, and then, being part of that human in the loop, like you were saying, really critical, especially for people that are new and using these kinds of things. It's been kind of some of my even for myself, just trying to say like I don't know that this is true. Like I'm trying to figure out if this is actually true what I'm reading here.
Completely agree. Completely agree. Good. Well, so let's talk a little bit more then. I'll show you some real examples how I taught myself how to prompt and how I prompt today. Um, 5 basic components. So I use task prompts. You can read this. Task prompts are, think of them as recipes, detailed instructions on how to get any individual a task done. I don't use task pejoratively, just discrete units of work. The task prompts have personas. We all know what that means in this case, but it's multiple voices within the task prompt to maybe produce a better answer, but definitely to produce a more understandable answer. User prompts help you customize the communication back to your preferred learning style, information synthesis style. Project instructions. So I use Claude. Claude comes with projects. I think at least a few other tools do. It's a way to re-emphasize the most important parts of how you want Claude to interact with you. Yeah, exactly, Ned. And then making this all possible with a very meta point, having a task prompt that helps you build task prompts. And again, I'm happy to give all of these to you guys if you want to play with them. So let's dive in a little bit. So the fundamental point is I wouldn't, if I'm doing anything in an LLM, and I use Claude in general, except like Matt, Perplexity for research, for exactly that reason, because it shows sites. But for general purpose, I use Claude. I use a task prompt, which is a very specific set of instructions on how I want a problem solved. I'm actually going to jump ahead because I was explaining this to someone earlier today, and I think this might be a clear way to put it. So I literally start every time I'm using an LLM with one of these 3 examples. I either know I have written the task prompt, just think of it like a recipe. Well, We'll talk through it in a second, what the components of it. In which case, if I know it exists, hey, I know I wrote a book recommender for myself called Books Quick, I use that. Or second, I know I did not write one. I have a book recommender, but I don't have a movie recommender. I then create a task prompt. I then create a chat to create a movie recommender for me. So I literally spend time. Chat number one is building the task prompt. Chat number two is then using that chat prompt to actually carry out the instructions. Chat one, the reason you start over as fast as you can in chats is they run out of capacity quickly, and so having as many discrete chats extends your ability to use them. There's a third category on the right. Once you really if you dig into building task prompts and you start liking them, you might forget how many you've built. I mean, I probably have built 150, of which 25 of them are in any given project at a certain time. Let's say I have a task to be done. The task prompt is remind me which ones I built and evaluate if any of them are good for this task at hand. If so, we'll use it. If not, we'll start over. And so before you jump in, that's the real point of having a task prompt. Have a really good task prompt ready to go, because it radically improves the quality of the answer. Task prompts include, so this is sort of an overview of it. It starts with a description. It includes things like what you want the output to look like. And this is an example from my book recommending prompt. It gives some guidance to the user and to the LLM itself on how to think about it, and some thematic guidance, which I found to be helpful. Again, I'm just going to jump a little. This is a real example of a task prompt. You obviously don't need to read it. It is 6 pages long of text. No human, remember, intelligence is now become cheap. I would never write 6 pages of instructions to get something done. But if you have a system that builds these task prompts for you, it can build incredibly specific instructions for how you want things built. Sort of the equivalent of automating the customization of sales emails. I don't know if that feels icky, but it can customize to your preferences in depth. So here's 6 pages of instructions that I have it build for me to carry things out. And no way would I used to write 2 or 3 sentences of explanation because I read you're supposed to don't just give it 1 sentence, give it 3. Well, you can give it pages and pages of guidance, and it's actually going to be a lot more accurate. So really sufficiently detailed task prompts is a huge part of it. We are all still programmers. Exactly right. We are programming in logic, using human language to program in logic. But absolutely, yes, it is a very, very, very lot. That's why a person who likes pivot tables is a great person to be your technical expert. Okay, so that's prompting in general. The next part of this is personas. So we, of course, know personas in our product work. The idea is asking your task prompts to have multiple different personalities or perspectives and insert themselves into the answers coming back. So here's an example for my book recommender task prompt. One of the personas, persona 1, is an eccentric librarian who asks some big picture questions. Another could be a cozy reading coach who is warm and supportive. Now, I think it was definitely true a year ago that prompting, including different personas, produced a higher quality answer because it was a way to trick or nudge the LLM to think differently and think from multiple perspectives. There's some evidence that may not be currently necessary to get to a high quality answer, but certainly from my experience, it is way easier to understand the results when you ask it to explain itself in these different voices. And this might be a silly example, but when we're doing, we're working on our next generation product, and we have personas to review it to give some initial feedback. That's obviously not instead of going out to the market, but thinking of specific people I know who I want to get their feedback and having those personas incorporated So I hear this person's approximate point of view, I'm more likely to synthesize it because, okay, from this point of view, I might need to worry about this or that. So again, maybe it improves quality, maybe not, but it definitely improves understandability for me as a user. Those are personas. User prompts. So the idea of this is you can, and so my Claude setup, and I can show a demo of that if you guys want to see it. I have task prompts to carry out individual tasks, and those vary based on what I'm doing. And then I have a user prompt of the ways that I want to be communicated with that is the most idiosyncratic to me. Okay, yes, please to the demo. All right, I'll do that in a sec. And so what do I mean by that? I'll give you something I learned along the way. I thought I wanted, oh my God, yeah, it's so freaking cool. You have to do personas. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I thought that what I wanted was mobile friendly. I really, I really don't like typing. And when I say mobile friendly, what I meant in my head was make it easy for me to say, oh, do option A or B, or just type short. What I actually meant was, I meant that. Give me multiple options with explicit trade-offs. I like seeing detailed analyses. I like seeing technical diagrams. I don't mind that its response is voluminous. Just make it easy for me to reply back. And so that, like, there's some self-knowledge here. There's a journey. One of the things I would do, let me just show it to you actually. Can you see Claude? Can you see my Claude, Matt? Okay, so just as an example, task, guide me, a new user, on building my, you don't have to get spelling right, my user persona by asking me 3 multiple choice questions about how I best like to process information. Task prompt is Forge. So the way, I, of course, did not write a 6-page document for how to write books. What I did is I wrote a task prompt, right? In fact, had it build itself. Forge creates task prompts, and I'll send you mine. You can modify it, but it says, okay, I have a problem. Now use multiple personas. It's very nested. Use multiple personas to come up with a really good set of instructions for this particular problem as it's forging a new one. And then I take that new prompt and use it to solve a problem. But Forge is built in. So Forge is in my library. And now I'm using Forge to create a user, build my user prompt by asking me 3 multi-choice questions. You could do more than 3, but just to be fast. By the way, I have built in some standards about when to be scrappy versus when to be high quality, because that's how I think. So it's already taking some of those things into account. Okay, would you like me to start asking me the 3 multi-choice questions? Yeah, so you can choose your own adventure here, and you can have it ask more and more questions. And so let's say 1, skip the rest and write a very short user prompt. Okay, so then it creates a user prompt. And so now it will do likely, remember it's forgetful, so you have to remind it sometimes, but you add this to the knowledge library, and then it incorporates it, usually, but not always, incorporates it into its into any particular task that you might be carrying out. Good? Okay. So Forge to make prompts, personas, user prompts, project instructions. At some point, if you're using a tool that has projects, I would encourage putting them in. So MVI projects 2. In here, it's just another way to re-emphasize here. Yes, exactly. Here are the most important things you want it to know. You're repeating it to overcome its forgetfulness. I told it everything I do start with a task prompt. Do not work on one without it. It still sometimes forgets, but I encourage it to do so. Use Forge to build new task prompts. Follow my communication preferences, etc. So it's another way of being repetitive. I think that makes sense. Boop, boop, boop. Okay, we talked about Forge task prompts. I always start with one of these three. Okay, let me pause there. Questions about that? Anyone want to try a real example if you're curious how it works? Demo. Okay. Ned, you want to volunteer a topic? Or anyone want to volunteer a topic?
Hey Ned, how about we pick a book for the book club?
We could do that, or we could talk about how we're going to manage hybrid meetings at CA.
I like that even better.
Okay. What is CAW?
Oh, sorry, keep Austin
Keep
Agile.
Austin Agile.
It's our upcoming
Conference coming up.
conference, and it's an in-person as well as a remote.
Okay. How you're going to handle meetings effectively?
Yes.
Okay. Task. We need guidance for our upcoming conference. Keep Austin Agile, which is hybrid virtual and live, to make meetings be successful for both groups. Good so far, Ned?
Lovely.
Okay.
Except for Ka is KAA.
Oh, keep. It's not my
And we
spelling.
can't
Thank
feed the
you.
wrong stuff to AI. We just can't.
If that's enough to
Rahul,
kill it
yes,
off,
we'll
it's,
share the prompts. I'll get through, Matt, all of the prompts we did. Happy to be in touch, etc. For sure. So first, at quality level 10, look through my library of task prompts. Do we have one that's suitable?
nice.
Just like in real life, demos don't always work. Oh, that is definitely unexpected.
I've been at that demo before.
If it were easy, any bot could do it.
Exactly. All right, let's try it again. Task, let's assume the answer is no because we know we don't have one. Run effective hybrid meetings at CAW conference.
Yeah.
Task prompt, create one based on Forge. So you saw quickly the personas about how to run effective meetings. What documents does it need to produce? How to implement it? I think it was Zoo's point, or maybe Alyssa's. Like, what you can do and should do is export it, read it, engage in it, and that kind of reading. That's not the same as writing it yourself, but my goodness, there's real engagement necessary to do it right. Do it, okay. Dun, dun, dun.
Hey, so Ben, I mean, you're seeing this, right, Ben? All right, we'll do it.
Yes.
Context, fine, fine. Output. Let's just show this. Have the, actually, this is, it can think. Let's do this. Good job on the personas. I don't know if you need to be nice. It doesn't hurt, is my experience. Please brainstorm.
It'll be important later.
Exactly, our benevolent overlords. Please brainstorm 100 more personas and suggest 2 more to incorporate in our planning. I was actually going to list them. Normally it keeps it to itself. I could have said just think to itself. But again, you can skim these. No way would you do this on your own. The hard part is judging which ones matter as grown-ups who've lived. All right, it's really going to do all 100.
My goodness.
Yeah. Intelligence is cheap. Judgment is hard. If you imagine giving this to a 22-year-old and having them pick this, no effing way. Not that they couldn't learn it, but it's with experience, proverbial gray hair at least, if not literal, that they can do a good job. Okay. And it picked 2. Great. But I also want crabby, skeptical participant. Not that it's coming at this conference, but I've been at them. To think through how this might not work. Better to get that criticism in advance. Yep, fine. Okay, so you had your judgment appropriately. Yeah, it's totally true. Not about call, about conferences. Okay, so then we did task prompts, we did personas. Yeah, that goes on forever. Let's do one more. Create new markdown artifact. So it can be an HTML. So it's easier for copying and pasting into other documents. I wish I knew that in advance. Markdown, if you're comfortable using Notepad, like it's a really, I recommend learning that, some of the basics of that, because it's just easier to interact with these tools. Okay, yes, it's updating. Create new markdown artifact on one narrow topic. Have a discussion of the personas on whether or not there should be a no cell phone policy at the event. I'm not suggesting you do this, but just to see it. Right. It's so detailed. Return only the most important point per person. I wouldn't do that in real life. Person. But just so we don't waste your time. Yeah, my point, I said it earlier, may or may not get you. You could ask it, should we ban cell phones or not? Give me the pros and cons. But just hearing different voices, even if they're not exactly right, I find it a super helpful way to engage with the content, to help me think of it differently by hearing a lot of different voices. Good. Let me finish the end of this presentation, then I'll stay on as many examples as you want, etc. But just to wrap it up, obviously I could talk about this all day. So we talked about the other things we did, things we could have done. I mean, I still would start small and make sure it makes sense to you and make sure that you have the spark of joy and usefulness before you start going further with it. But then finding ways at the company level as a whole for more urgency, knowing what competitors are doing can be helpful to drive adoption. At some point, making sure people know what does it mean for their career paths, some point relatively soon, so that they don't feel like they're getting displaced, that they can be more value added. Process redesign, of course, this will change a lot of different things as people adopt it as we go. You guys can ask any questions about this. Yeah, and so then you start combining different tools. So we talked about, so I use Claude as general purpose. I use Perplexity exactly as Matt said for exactly the same reasons for research, because I want to read the sites. And then in my product hat, I use Bolt for prototyping, including clickable prototypes. So this is a real example. This the inception. It's really true. We're building a new prototype called the Support Radar. I asked Perplexity to search the internet for how to guide Bolt on building how to give good instructions to Bolt. I took that template and had Claude improve it to see if it could produce a really good template. I then explained to Claude what I wanted to do to build this product, and it populated the template. I gave it back to Bolt to build the clickable prototype. I gave the results, screenshots back to Perplexity in its deep thinking mode to see what it would say on how it could be better based on market research. I took that feedback from Perplexity, put it back into the template, and went going. You don't need to start here, but think about different teams of people working for you with different personalities. Claude can produce one set, Perplexity can produce another set, etc. Sorry, this was a tip I really wish I had known earlier. Let me just do this one. Projects. Third playground. Oh, that one's empty. Let's do this one. Okay, task, research, customer support tools. That's what Support Radar is for. Task prompt, write a task prompt to conduct this research via Perplexity, because the different tools have different personalities. Help me do this research, but using Perplexity instead. Let's see what it does.
It's thinking a little bit more about it.
Yep. All right. I don't love it.
Yeah, and
It might be
it's
right. Yeah. This this seems more like a Claude prompt, not a Perplexity prompt. At your highest levels of rigor, be honest, is this the right prompt for Perplexity? Yeah, but that's literally my experience. Again, that's judgment from trying these so many times. And so now it's producing a shorter one. And again, it's like you got to learn how to talk to it in a way that makes sense. It doesn't feel crazy. But talk to it like you would talk to a colleague that you trusted but didn't fully trust. Trusted but didn't fully trust. Okay, good. Someone raise your hand. Go for it. Zoo, again, please.
As you were starting to do this, you gave me a thought of an experience I had, and then it did exactly what I thought you might run into. Is the tools, I don't know if they're programmed to kind of like do their own thing to some degree, but I was trying to ask Gemini, how might I transfer my workflows from ChatGPT to Gemini? And it was just tooting its own horn how it's better and was naming all these features it has that ChatGPT doesn't. And I was like, no, it does. What are you talking about? Oh, well, sorry, I made a mistake. And it like 4 times tried to tell me that it's still better. And then by the end of this conversation, I was like, yeah, you're kind of right, though. And so it's actually, we're going full circle back to like, if you don't know what you don't know, it's easy to take what it gives you and just use it. But if you don't question its judgment, if you don't have that experience that you were talking about, like it's just extremely difficult to know. It just sounds so realistic,
It
but it's
sounds so real. Yeah, it's
really
designed to be confident. What do they say about CEOs? Not saying I know any, always confident, not always right, about everything they do. I wouldn't say that it's my experience that Claude's primary accuracy problem is it's too bullish on its own tools versus others, but like one out of every 10 responses I know is wrong because of my experience. Not because I didn't ask the question click carefully, that sometimes happens. But yeah, this is a tool for grown-ups. Often wrong, never uncertain. It's a tool for grown-ups because you're going to get it. You have the context of how the world works and what you're looking for. And then our challenge is to teach mid-careers and junior folks how to develop that wisdom given the difficulties of compressing experience. Okay, that's it. I'll stay on for a few minutes. So fun. Obviously, could talk about this forever. I'll make sure that Matt gets all the prompts. I told you my favorite, like we're all bombarded, but Ethan Mollick, a University of Penn professor, has a newsletter free, but he posts 1 or 2 pieces a day that help me keep up with general purpose Gen AI, and I find him very objective and very useful. And then if you want more, I'm happy to do a little bartering if you're willing. I'm happy to do a training session, deep dive with 1 or more members of your team, and we'd ask and exchange. Our next generation product is AI-based tool to keep the product roadmap on track. We'll do a 30 for 30 swap. Happy to train one-on-one sessions, whatever you like. With that, incredible thanks. I'll stay on to the top of the hour if anyone wants to do more demos or have any more questions, but huge thanks to Matt and the team for letting me be a part of this. I love this so much, and really thank you for the questions.
Thank you so much, Matt. That was amazing. That was love the real time, love the interactivity with the folks here, both in chat and and just coming off mute and all those good things. Lots of love from Ben and everybody else. And Matt, you've shared so much, not just to help us out, but also been so open with some of the challenges that you had and things you wish you'd done better, which I think is just such a great part of our community that we can talk about how we can continuously improve or relentlessly improve, depending on your model. So really awesome. And thanks for everybody being here and making this such a special event. And we can't do it without you. And your presence is our present, as I sometimes say. And all of this will be on YouTube, and Agile Austin will blast it out on the various channels. We do have a Slack group. If people are interested in joining, it's free and all that good stuff. So just reach out. I threw my email address up there, and I will pause and then let everybody else keep asking Matt questions.
Thanks all for the warm feedback. I really appreciate it. You have 5 minutes left. Someone in this 5 minutes could unlock something that would make your whole next week better. So be brave and ask that question.
So I assume aside from Claude, you've tried other tools. Like, what made you center on Claude?
The short answer is I experimented with a couple last year, like OpenAI, ran a few tests myself, had a positive experience with Claude. It seemed like it reacted better on a couple of the same questions, and so stuck with it. And then I'm sure it was positive reinforcement, or you see things that reinforce what you already believe. And so I kept seeing examples that Claude seems to be a particularly good general purpose tool. The most important thing is that we have a Slack channel of idea sharing. I used it for this. I didn't like it. Now I'm using this tool. We have a very aggressive tool policy. Everyone can use whatever tool they want and share ideas on it. We have the luxury of doing that, but they have to share their results. I am sure in X months, Claude will not be the best. Bolt will not be the best. Perplexity will be the best. I don't know what X is. I don't know what's going to replace it. So having a critical mass of people who are using different tools, at least on the experimental phase, there's no substitute for that. And for me, when someone gave me a task prompt that I didn't know how to build, that was like the moment for me that I'd really taught them enough that it wasn't just going to be me leading the way, which is never a good answer. Like, you want multiple folks. So having a community where you're really rigorously trying those different tools, whatever that community looks like, is the way to do it. Atul, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Matt, great presentation, actually. Thank you. I just wanted to ask you or the group. So I'm in Visa, and one of the things which within project management or product management, I would say we always struggle is really getting requirements and backlog to a point which is good enough to get projects started. We are all agile now, so we always look for a couple of sprints worth of backlog. It's been always a struggle, right? And so we're looking for ways, and we're doing some proof of concepts in terms of existing requirements document, design document, system specs, and trying to see if LLM models can help generate future requirements, so to say, right? And have you all seen any products out there or any POCs in this respect around like building requirements forward looking with some legacy data?
How much? So one challenge is having enough robust tickets, let's say, is another challenge related but separate is analyzing the historical data to produce the tickets. Am I thinking about that right? Are they both
That's right.
separate? But
Yeah, that's right. Like,
oh,
there's always customization and future requirements, like, but there's a lot of legacy good data that's available where you don't have to rephrase the requirements, right? If the LLM model can understand the system design and specs and the current functions, and if I give some prompts in terms of what I'm looking for, can the LLM generate future requirements, right? In more system specs, I would say, or functional
got it.
specs.
So there's already a suggestion for vectorial AI that came through. So Matt, can we stay on for 2 minutes? Can I stay on for 2 minutes and talk to Atul a little bit more about this?
Yeah.
Okay. So I would say, so two things, Atul. So I would, on the first question of getting the requirements right and getting them full, I would, general purpose AI tools can absolutely help. Like I would pilot it by finding an engineer or a team and saying, hey guys, gender neutral, what would you like? What makes a perfect ticket for you to be helpful? Describe the components, and then turn that into, because you want them to have buy-in, then create some mock-up examples with real data using a general purpose GenAI tool. And again, you could come with examples. Hey, design for me. We are Visa. We have these, in these. This is the nature of our work. Come up with a good template for tickets, but something like that, you might as well engage the stakeholders from the beginning. Then populate it. Okay, I now have a template. Now populate it with some. I'm going to give you a document, a specific document. Create some requirements. Fill in this template based on. Based on the documents I've given you, the specific documents I've given you before it does a broad search, and then bring that back to stakeholders to say to the engineers and see if they're satisfied, and if not, they can tune it. So that's kind of not necessarily a quick win, but I would definitely engage with them because it's now possible to really hyper customize and get more detailed on what the tickets should look like and how detailed they should be. That's step one. Does that make sense?
It does. It does help. If you could put the AI you mentioned on the chat, that would help, Matt. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And then let me show you the other one. The other step I would do. Do you mean the tool? A tool?
Yes, the tool. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Claude, I like. Happy to do a session with you. It's in here too, but I'll just put it. But here's the other thing. I'll show one more thing and then I'll let you guys go. Okay. You can see my Claude screen again, right?
Yep.
Okay. Task. We are a large financial services company leading large scale refactoring. We have thousands of documents that we want to convert to tickets for ease of use by our developers. Actually, I'm going to do it like this. Context. Task. Create a task prompt for Perplexity to research off-the-shelf vendors who can perform this task well. We don't want to build it ourselves if we can avoid it. You, of course, could use an LLM to build your own internal system, but I might as well look like this. So we're going to use Claude to build the research request. Let's see if it does a succinct job. It's a little long, but we'll start with it. Okay, so I'm going to copy this, then into Perplexity. Perplexity and others let you choose how detailed the research is. In this case, deep research would be the best, but it could take like 15 minutes. So we're just going to do a quick version, but then I would rerun it for real, and I'm happy to run it for you to see what the answer is. And this is like G2 on steroids. And Atul, I'm sure it's obvious, but for context, any knowledge work at this point you could effectively build a solution yourself with a general purpose GenAI tool. You're left with the quintessential make versus buy decision. More things can be done, yourself now with GenAI, but special purpose tools exist for a reason. And so I most certainly would go through the vendor process and see, at least look at it, go through at least this to see if there's ones that would do a really good job. But this, I'm sure you've heard the expression that search is being replaced by AI, right? I would never do a vendor search again other than this way, because it's so much more objective and so much more detailed, and I can customize it relative.
This is awesome. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Here's my email address. I know this, and obviously we don't do this for a living, so this is, if it's helpful, find me and I can send you these materials. Okay, I've used up enough of your time. Thank you so much, Matt. What an absolute pleasure. I had such a treat. Please feel free to find me if folks have questions, and I wish you all an amazing weekend.
All right.
Good
Thanks
job.
once
Thank you.
again.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Bye, everyone. Take care.
All right. See you next month. I'm going to stop the recording.